Welcome to the Decent People podcast, a production of Decential Media, where we're committed to telling the stories of the founders, builders, and visionaries who are creating a new decentralized economy and internet experience. You guys know it as Web3 or blockchain, and we're going to bring you the smartest and most interesting people in the space for intimate conversations that reveal their background, how they got into crypto in the first place, and what they're doing today to make a decentralized future a reality. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure to check out our site at decentral.io. Now, to the show.
Welcome back to another episode of the Decent People podcast by Decential Media. I'm your host, Stephen Ladden. This week, we're joined by visual artist and director of engineering at ArtBlocks, Aaron Penne. Aaron, welcome to the podcast.
How you doing? Happy to be here.
Yeah, great. Happy to be here as well. And, really excited to learn more about you and your journey from art and how that moved into what we're experiencing now. You could say the future of art in some ways with crypto and NFTs and all that stuff. So maybe to just take it back, growing up, were you always fascinated by art? Was that a driving passion? How did you get into the world?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it was something I did when I was a kid. I took some art classes, drawing for fun, young kid stuff, like, younger than 10. Um, I took poetry pretty seriously when I was in college and was sketching and actually found my old Google Sites from 2010 the other day. And it's incredibly embarrassing, but it's got some artwork and some poetry and all that from, 12 years ago. So I've always been interested in it. I was focusing more on writing and was going to go to school for English and met my girlfriend at the time, now partner in crime and wife, and decided I need to get a real job. And so I switched my focus from English over to engineering, electrical engineering, where I could make some actual money and support, that whole lifestyle. So I kind of left the creative passion behind for a couple years, got deep into hardware and software, pivoted my career into data stuff after a couple years doing electrical engineering, and found some creative expression in that, making data visualizations. And it kind of clicked. I was able to use my programming skills that I've developed over, 5 years of all this, grad school and all these projects in the first couple of years of my career, and apply it in a creative way, with creative coding. And once I was able to do that, it was like, instead of having to spend years learning how to paint and expressing myself that way, or spending years learning how to play piano and expressing myself that way, I was doing both at the time and was pretty middling at those, but I was good at coding. And so I was able to take my visual desires and immediately access them with code. So that's kind of how I got into it. So I guess I always kind of had this creative force inside of me, left it behind for some time, and was able to pull it back out through my technical experience. Very fortunate in that way.
Yeah, and so would you say in that respect that, I mean, could it be said that coding is itself a form of art?
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's one of the people that's been like most influential for me is a mentor I had. Goes by the handle of Empty Monkey, and they are like very low level Linux hacker type person, and they like really grok things at a low level, and they kind of impress that upon me. And they treat writing code as sort of a meditation. They treat it like sort of poetry, which I was very into, before that. So that was sort of the first kind of unlock. I think the first like door that opened was having someone who treated the act of coding and understanding algorithms and working through things at a low level, treating that as a creative practice and as something that should be like a craft. That was really powerful and shaped the way that I approach creating projects. Definitely.
Awesome. So when you say you kind of got back into the art after having more of a, call it a for lack of a better term, traditional job,
Mhm.
you never really left the art in some ways. If
Right.
engineering was, because you're still honing the craft just perhaps in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about that a couple weeks ago. Actually, I was talking to one of my old friends who was on this robotics team that I was on. We did like a robotic submarine competition sort of thing in college. And looking back on it, I realized that was like a very creative kind of time, right? We're solving these problems. We don't know what we're doing. We're figuring it out. I'm writing code and the thing is blinking or moving the way that I ask it to. So getting that sort of feedback right away. I think having that direct output of I gave instructions, the thing did what I wanted to, and it's fun, right? It's like a submarine doing a race. Like that's fun and exciting. I think that um, was also like a creative outlet. So even though I didn't realize it at the time, I think that those two things were happening hand in hand. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. So when you focused more, started to focus back more on the art, was there a point at which you realized, hang on, wait a minute, maybe this is actually not only going to be just something that I love, that's um, something that I'm doing continuously, but now this can actually be providing sustenance and kind of converting the energy that you were putting into the engineering job. Now it's, going full time into the art, and you're getting essentially the same uh, return in order to,
Right.
you know,
Right.
move forward.
Uh, well, I haven't gone full time into art. It's still something I do at night on the side in my spare moments. But it's that way for me by design. A lot of folks, when the whole NFT explosion happened, are like, "Oh, you're going to do art full time," and I don't think I could do it full time at this point in my life. I need the clean code, logical challenge of building an engineering team and solving problems, day to day engineering problems, writing clean code, writing documentation, writing tests. I need that structure in order to rebel against it in my creative practice, I think. So I feel this if I didn't have the day job where I'm writing good code, I wouldn't feel the need to write a bunch of crappy code where I can create some artwork out of it. So for me, it's sort of this push and pull that's necessary to keep the wheels moving on both sides, right? And I benefit, of course, in my creative practice from having code experience from work, and my work benefits from having new mental pathways, new problem solving techniques that I explore in my creative practice. So they feed off of each other in that way. So that's why I don't think I'll be doing work or art full time. But yeah, I I didn't find a point necessarily where I was like, oh, it's a sustenance. It's more like a point where I was like, I'm going to take this very seriously and treat it like a craft. Right? I just always had that kind of perfectionist inclination when I was, um, my college job was as a barista. And we were doing, the latte art and stuff. Instead of just like doing it for fun, I took it like very seriously, and I practiced gallons and gallons of milk daily, just practicing, get there at 4 a.m. practice. We started hosting like latte art competitions. So, I mean, any little like creative outlet like that, I always took it very seriously. Instead of just like writing poetry for fun, we made a group of friends and created a little scene in San Diego where I was living at the time of local coffee shop poetry reads and organized events around it. And so anytime I'm doing these creative outlets, I put a lot of thought and intention around it. And creative coding was no different. I studied the people who came before me in the space, and learned about the founders of this computer-based generative art form and the folks that were practicing it in the 80s and 90s and early 2000s, and just like fed off of it, practiced my own work, and started connecting with other people that were doing the same thing at the time. 5 years ago, whatever it was all very like social media focused. We're sharing stuff on Reddit or Instagram or other places like that. And finding that community, I think, is what really made me think, oh, this is something I want to spend a lot of time in. I have this kind of weird niche desire and excitement, and there's people all over the world that happen to share that same thing. Maybe there's 50 of them that I knew at the time, right? It's a small group, but I was able to make this kind of like really deep personal connection. And so that for me, that is what got me excited. It's like the community aspect. People always say like, "Oh, we're in this for the community," but that truly is what got me hooked into doing generative art as a craft was being able to talk with folks who had the same super specific, weird skill and desire to hone that skill into a craft.
Does the community help kind of balance both, call it them extremes? Are they other people too that are in a similar situation where art is on one end of their, say, day to day, and there's also this other side too? Like I guess two questions. How important is the community to your creation of art, and does it influence it in any way?
Yeah, I would say very important. Um, one, because it made me feel that I wasn't such a weirdo trying to make interesting images with my computer. Oh, it turns out there's a whole space of people that do this. There's a whole lineage of art history that this is part of. So I'm not like by myself, doing something in a vacuum. I'm actually part of this like huge conversation globally. It's been happening for 60 years or no longer, right? So that is critical to keeping the passion going, keeping the fire going. It's one thing to be excited about your own little output, but it's a whole other thing to see that in the context of all these other people and all this other work over time. Um, Also, from a more practical standpoint, talking to folks who were also in school, also had jobs, also had kids, or also had this generative art passion, talking to those folks and be like, oh my gosh, it's like 2 a.m. I'm chatting on the phone with Caleb Og and talking about our engineering jobs and how we're trying to figure out like how to do some color selection and some creative algorithms. So we are both for balancing those worlds, and that's just like one example of a lot of people that I've talked to that had the same kind of existence that I did. So it makes you feel very like comfortable, I guess, and like welcome, and like it gives you even a footing to continue the weird explorations that you're doing or that I was doing, right? So it was very very huge to me. These people that I was talking to at the time, I ended up forming a club with them. I was having all these like siloed conversations with these different generative artists of my kind of um, similar type of artist, social media forward, engineering background, maybe art background, whatever, but in the same kind of space. And so I made a Slack group where the 50, 60 of us could chat. And now that was, 2019 or something like that. And now there's 400 people, and it's like all the movers and shakers in the generative art space that have become well known with the NFT explosion. And it's been really powerful to have that core group and have like a home base where we can talk about mental health, we can talk about pricing our work, we can talk about how to interpolate between colors and different color spaces and get technical. So it's a really really important sort of centering role that the community of other artists plays. I'd say it's
Mm.
critical.
In terms of the digital art, visual art, how did all of this kind of manifest with art blocks?
I talked to Eric Snowfro, I think 2019 timeframe, about doing a different project for a different company he owned. He ran a tile business, maybe still runs it, a tile business. Um, and he saw some of my work on Reddit and reached out and was like, "Oh, cool stuff! I have this idea. I want to make generative pebbles on some tiles. I think your work would go well." So we talked about doing like a commercial kind of work. And he, at some point, he was like, "Oh, also, I have this idea for a website where you can have these generative artworks." And so after some time, some discussion, falling in and out of contact over some time, uh, it just kind of rolled into place. I'm part of this community of generative artists. There's this new cool thing. One of our members, Dmitry Cherniak, who's an amazing friend and artist in the space, he's very giving with his time and information. Anyways, at the time, he was setting up Ringers, one of the first kind of like dominoes that kicked off the whole generative art thing. And he messaged into our little group and was like, "Oh, hey, I'm doing this thing with this new group art blogs. If you guys can share about it." And so all of us were like, "Oh, this is actually happening." We kind of talked about it, but now it's actually happening. Let's see how it goes. And it went really well. Obviously, he sold out in the same day. So all of us were like, "Oh, okay, we're paying attention now." And so start looking and taking it more seriously, talking to Eric, kind of looking into technology and understanding what it meant. And so at the time, I kind of wanted to keep the crypto concept like at arm's length. I didn't really understand it or care to it at the time. I mean, before that, and then once Ringers happened, and I started talking to Eric a little more deeply, um, it like clicked in such a huge way. It's like this thing that I've been doing for years, and it's part of this huge long lineage of amazing folks, is now like unlocked in a whole different way because you're always trying to share the code that you write. Right, the code itself, I view as the artwork as well as the visual output. Right, it's like the same kind of package, and I want to share this code base that has this like infinite parameter space, these infinite outputs. I want to share and sell my system that I've created. But at the time, all I can really do is share a single output on social media, sell it in some gallery, sell a print to someone who reached out to me directly. So it's a very limiting kind of world where I have this infinite system that does all these cool things, but I can only share a handful of outputs. And there were many times where I sell a print, someone loses the print, I lose the code, right? I change the code and forget to, do a git commit. That this blockchain on-chain generative art technology that Art Blocks came up with, or expanded on, changes the whole game. It just clicked so perfectly. And I had been using in my artwork, I had been using hashes to inform the outputs for some time as like a Christmas gift. In 2018 or 2019, I used my family's names as the input to a hash function to use the hash as the input for some like butterfly NFT outputs that I gave as Christmas gifts for everybody. So this concept of using the hash as the input to drive the system was already part of my workflow. And so when I say it clicked like in a big way, it really did on a lot of levels. So I got involved creating artwork through Art Blocks, developing a relationship with the team, meeting some of these folks in person, and just deepening relationships. I was working at AWS at Amazon for a couple of years at the time. I was a senior data engineer running a little team of data engineers and business analysts, and building backend systems and front end reports for our sales organization for AWS, which is really cool technical work, but it kind of had, it's sales for cloud company. It didn't have as fulfilling of the outcome. Like the meaning for me personally was a little stagnant. And so there's this opportunity to grow our blocks, and it was just a really kismet fitting of my professional skill set and experience. I've been doing it for so many years, and these relationships that I built, and my passion as an artist and sort of a representative of that community in this space. So I feel like sometimes I feel like an insider at Art Blocks, like representing the voice of the artist, trying to push things in the artist's favor. And so anyway, it just the opportunity knocked, and I was ready for it because it fit the things that I've been doing for 5-6 years.
Awesome. So it's like also too, then you were uniquely positioned. Yeah, I love how you're saying how that all fits. So in many ways, it was just more of an evolution of what you were already doing, and sort of a transition to another, uh, not completely new system, but the transition wasn't completely. It wasn't as crazy of a leap as it may have been for some other folks.
Yeah, I guess so. I'm also very conservative, like with financial decisions, with physical risk. I'm very conservative. I'm kind of shy sometimes, and if I'm going to make a big decision that changes the course of my life, my family's life, I take it very seriously and put a lot of thought into it. I had done several career pivots up to that point, so I went from from English, from writing, into electrical engineering, from electrical engineering into like biomedical specific electrical engineering, which is a different kind of flavor. From that into more software and data engineering, and from that into some like leadership elements. So I had done very distinct career pivots before, so I sort of had experience with knowing what my threshold was, I guess, for risk and identifying what I thought was smart or dumb, I suppose. And so the idea of leaving my FANG job and going to a small art technology startup in the crypto space definitely gave me some pause, right? It wasn't something that I did and immediately I made a huge list of all the possible things that needed to be, all the risks needed to be mitigated in order to make that change. And all of them were more than mitigated. And there's something I think special. I mentioned meaning, for getting meaning out of your work, but at the time it was so hard to focus on my Amazon job because the art is just, you know, so there's so much there to share with the world. I have so much artwork to share, but also conversation. Right, I'm in Discord way too much. You know, all these other things. So I wanted to make sure I was bringing my full self to whatever I was doing. And I see a therapist and have for the past couple of years. I think everybody should, if the means are if they are there for you. It's incredible to kind of get better about knowing yourself, right? I hate the phrase "know yourself" because it's like, oh, instantly you know yourself. No, it's like putting in work to understand yourself over time. And so I've been trying to do that for a couple of years. It's really powerful. One of those uh, things is thinking about how these big changes like affects me and how I can be more authentic in each scenario, each setting. So at the time I was kind of turning on and off modes of operation. I was in Amazon, very professional, very curt kind of style of operating. And then at night I would go into artist mode and have like a whole different thought process and interaction with the world. And I wanted to have like one kind of authentic experience across the board. And so moving into art blocks is the perfect way to do that, right? If I had all the freedom in the world to pick whatever job I wanted, it would be something to do with creativity and something to enable others to express their creativity and still provide some technical interesting challenge. Like I said earlier, I sort of need those two sides to kind of bounce off each other and create a little perpetual motion machine. And so uh, this, as corny as it is, intersection of art and technology that our books is, does that perfectly. And so I felt like a very strong resonance with it. And so for me, I knew honestly right away when I started talking to Eric about like fully transitioning into a full time job. So I was talking about like doing some consulting or part time stuff. When we started talking full time, it just made sense. I was like, yeah, that's what I should do. And that would combine all the pieces of my sort of existence that I really cared about into one role, and I would be able to give a lot to it and not feel drained, right? And I would be able to empower the people that I befriended over all these years as an artist and as a member of this new crypto community, all these other places. There's all these people now that are looking for tools, looking for ways to find success, looking for ways to express themselves, looking for ways to get involved. And Artbox is building those and providing that for all these people. And so by joining the team, I'm able to help accelerate that, help onboard more artists, help spread the word of generative art, and really, I think, help shape where this medium is going. That's exciting.
Yeah, that's really exciting, and I love how it's again, as you mentioned, the intersection of both or all of the things that interest you, and now kind of it's culminating in this role, and you're getting to do all those different things, and I love the piece too of getting to know yourself, because from that place, then you're uh, minimizing the frustrations of what you're 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 maximizing the enjoyment of what you're doing, because you're pointing yourself in the direction of what drives you. And I think a lot of people uh hopefully
Sure.
can kind of, yeah, take that nugget and run with it in whatever way their ship points. And in terms of pointing ships and the future of uh you know the art that we're talking about, what's next for art blocks, for yourself? What can we expect to see on the horizon here?
Yeah. I've been on parental leave for the past month, so I can't say exactly what's next for our blogs. I had a new baby a month ago. It's very exciting and totally life changing, but in a good way, a very good way. Um, what's so our blogs has we had a lot of really cool things coming, and we were tightening things across the board and trying to improve the user experience. Really doing a lot of heavy work around incorporating user input. Like me personally, I reached out to all these different core groups, Grailers DAO, a bunch of collectors that I cared about, artists that I'm friends with, and all these different people to really try and understand what art blocks can do to improve. I'm always in a state of iteration personally, but also like to bring that to any company I'm working for, and that's part of art blocks' core. Um, Drive is to iterate and become and be the best place for generative artists to sell their work. So everything that we do is towards that initiative. And there's a lot of cool things, different contract improvements, different front end improvements, a lot of initiatives. For example, partnering with Pace Gallery, which is one of the most powerful galleries in the world, to bring generative artists, crypto native artwork into the traditional space is really powerful. So a lot of exciting stuff there. For me personally, I've been actually almost more productive since I've had the whole pregnancy, kid, life-changing events happening, because I'm able to cut out a lot of the things that I don't care about, I guess. And this is some advice I got from some dear artist friends who were in like similar places. What I mean about the community, I'm able to reach out to 2, 3, 4 artists who are my age. They have my tech experience. They have a young kid. They're full time artists. I'm able to talk to people who have this super specific, really weird combination of things, and be like, okay, how the hell do you survive having a job, having a kid, being an artist, all these things that are really important to you. And I got some really good advice. But the main thing that's happened is I've been able to forego things that I don't care about that I spent a lot of time on beforehand, right? Tasks or, you know, relationships that maybe aren't as healthy, or scrolling Twitter for, 4 hours in a day, those kind of things I'm able to not do because I don't have any time in the day to do them. So I'm able to focus very much on what I want to do, which is creating artwork and being present with my family, of course, first and foremost, but creating artwork and interacting with collectors and artists. I think that's the best part of the NFT space, is you have this direct connection with these people, and so much good comes from that, I think. But anyways, long story short, for me personally, I've been working on some one of ones, sort of a loosely connected series of primary color explorations that are a lot of fun. These sort of like kind of I like to call them painterly, although they're not painterly at all. They're sort of from a distance, they look like they're like handmade, and then up close you can see very clearly the digital artifacts. It's a theme I explored in some recent one of ones, and in the Within Without project, I explored it explicitly. So I have a whole bunch of these that I've made over the past couple of months that I'll start minting and selling and creating some story around. I have several ideas for some fun collaborations in the future that I want to do. Beretta, who I worked with Rituals, which was the audio visual project. He did the audio side, I did the visual side, and I coded it up with the help of Counterpoint Studios. We want to do something else during that project. We came up with a dozen, I think, very cool ideas for future work. So exploring that is definitely something I have simmering and coming up all the time. I have some ideas that I want to put together with people like Steve Klebanoff to have some cool ideas with some blockchain art, be a little more playful, I think, with the smart contract as a medium. So, and those are just like off the top. I have too many things burning. I need to put some of them aside. But anyways, that's part of the exciting part about being in this unique position that I am in the space, is that I'm able to let the electricity of these ideas kind of buzz and let it happen, because it's not impossible to make them come to life, right? I'm able to have some weird idea, talk to the people that are interested in this weird idea, and make it happen. And it's absolutely fulfilling and very exciting. So that's what I'm going to be starting to play with, more of these kind of focused one-on-ones, more collaborations potentially. Also have an art blocks project that's been like simmering for some time. So yeah, too much stuff coming.
That's great though, again, I love how it all comes back to what you were saying in terms of kind of axing the things in your life that aren't serving these ultimate purposes, and it kind of gives more clarity and more energy for to you and for you for the purpose of what we just mentioned. All the new things that you plan to iterate on and build.
Right.
And what's also cool is it's taking a crazy wacky idea, and the fact that I think other people are on board with it doesn't make it that wacky. You know, in
Right,
concept,
right.
it can be, but it validates that, hey, this out of the box thought or concept is actually something that resonates. So that's also really, really cool to hear.
One of the, I got to share, I'd be remiss if I didn't. Currently, I have artwork showing at the Seattle NFT Museum, which is a new establishment. They are doing an exhibition right now called Artist in the Machine. And I have 5 artworks in it. I've got a whole wall, and it's next to Zach Lieberman and Manolo and Young Weekend and Lisa He artwork. So big generative focus, which is really exciting. But one of them is Within Without, a project that I did recently, a long form project to use the term. Um, and I did a weird idea, a cool idea, I think, of letting holders of that project remote control what is being displayed in the museum. And so if you're a holder of Without of this project, you can go to this website that I made, prove that you own the artwork, and then you can create an out of band artwork from that algorithm. So you type in your name or a phrase or whatever, and it hashes it, and that updates when you send it. It updates the display in the museum. So someone will be sitting there looking at the artwork in person. Someone in Europe will log in, change it, and the display will change in front of the person in Seattle. And I think that was really fun to give the collectors a way to interact with a physical space in this kind of like digital world. And I'll be displaying that same interactive installation at the Seattle Art Museum, not the NFT museum, but the proper Seattle Art Museum. This weekend, they're having an event with a lot of interactive installations. And so I'll be able to share this on-chain generative NFT project that has this interactive element to have some play with it to a whole, hundreds of people that are going to be coming through this event that maybe you've never heard of on-chain generative artwork, maybe they've never heard of, or maybe they hate NFTs. And so I'll have this opportunity to kind of have some play with them. Like, use it as an educational tool. Here's a cool visual. You get to type your name in and change it. Oh, by the way, it's an NFT, and by the way, it's all these things. And so I think that's something that I'm really passionate about, is like educating and onboarding. There's a lot of headlines and things about the space, but really when it comes down to it, it's about, at least in this microcosm of on-chain generative artwork or just NFT artwork in general, about empowering artists, empowering collectors, and building something new and world changing as far as royalties, as far as provenance and artist independence and all these sorts. So I think educating these museum goers is going to be a lot of fun, and I want to do more of that. I'm going to do a panel at the Seattle Art Fair, and these other NFT and art focused event, or excuse me, not NFT, but art focused events, traditional artwork focused events, and sort of sneak into those and spread the good word of generative art. So basically, I'm trying to break down, or not necessarily break down, it's so aggressive. I want to step through these doors and bring my collectors with me into these new spaces, right? Try and share this work. And hopefully by doing that, I'm able to allow or enable other artists to feel confident and comfortable to do the same. So that's something I feel really strongly about.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And excited to see where, first and foremost, congrats on the Seattle Museum and everything there. And
Thank you.
it's really cool it adds another element of interactivity to art that you know, you kind of start to thought spiral on that, and it's kind of the sky's the limit as to where that could go. So that and inspiring others. I mean, Aaron, that's you have a lot on your plate.
I agree, but that's exactly how I like it. I think I don't remember what I said, but I was joking with someone recently about like my grind is like constant, but I couldn't have it any other way. It needs to be that way. The same way I need to have the stressful day job in order to have a productive art career. I need to have that perpetual motion machine of things rebelling off each other.
Mm. And in the same way that we said that coding is art, so too maybe two conflicting or opposing ways of conducting time. Uh, so too may those things benefit each other. So very cool.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Aaron Penne, thank you so much for your time. This has been another episode of the Decent People podcast. by Decentral Media. I'm your host, Steve Ladden. Thank you so much.
It was a pleasure talking. Take care.